Okay, let's give this a try. So I got a submission from a brave person. Okay, so this was some episode or some event, something that took place in an airport. Okay, so I have just pasted it into this Google Doc and I'm going to look. So, first thing I want to say is when you're writing for IELTS, there are two ways to organize that you can think about it, or this when you are speaking for IELTS. And in general, whenever you're writing anything, it's good to take even 1 minute. Actually, in IELTS, you have 1 minute to prepare, and you should take that minute. And you can ask yourself the five W5 questions: who, what, when, where, why, plus H is how. And that's one way to just brainstorm. So I'm thinking about an airport. Okay, who? Maybe me, and then there's someone else in the story. What happened? Okay. When did this happen? You might say. These five questions help you just get some details in your mind, and actually you can just write them down as point form. When did it happen? Where did it happen? Why? And then how? So just thinking about those questions is one way to get some ideas so you can get organized. And then if you're writing this on paper, you can use numbers to organize those points. Another way to organize the ideas, at least for IELTS speaking, is you can think of it as a little story. So I think in this case, or in many cases, you can think of them as both as those five questions and a story. Now, in this case, more or less, it does follow a chronological order. So that's good. It's a block of text, and we want to see some paragraphs in this much uh, content. In that many words, it's good to see some paragraphs. I already put this space in here. So you see how that already breaks it up. And I'm just going to randomly put another space just because it's easier to look at in these three pieces. Okay, so let's jump in here. The first thing spring to mind. Okay, now you're going to need to decide which tense you're going to go with. You can go with the past tense all the way through, but if you're telling a story, that's an exception because you're allowed to use the present tense all the way through for a story. It's called the narrative present or the historical present. So let's try. Let's see. But in this case, the first thing that springs to mind. I don't want to go through actually detail by detail just yet, though. Actually, I want to look at the big picture. So the first thing that springs to my mind, it was last year when I prepared to come back China from Korea. At first, I didn't realize what would happen, so I left 1.5 hours to check in as normal until I arrived at the airport. To my surprise, the airport was full of people. I should queue up at the end of a long period. Okay, I know in Chinese you can do this, but no, in English, no. Sentence in English has a verb and a subject and one main idea. Now, of course, it can be a complex sentence or a compound sentence. But in any case, the basic sentence is a verb and a subject and an idea. So you could even already do that. The first thing that springs to my mind was last year. But I want to read through this. So anyway, this has to be divided into more sentences with periods. Okay, that's way too long as a sentence. Okay, after half an hour, the line still moved. So I'll just tell you the story. The first thing, I came back from China, so she left 1.5 hours early to check in as normal. Arrived at the airport. The airport was full of people, and she needed to queue up at the end of a long line. Okay, so this is a good introduction, right? You see the story. You can picture it, right? Very good. After half an hour, the line still moved like a snail. Very nice saying, or that's an expression. or we can say at a snail's pace is the more usual way to say that. I checked the clock and found that my flight was about to take off, so I had no choice but to jam in line. I walked to the front of the line, blah, 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 blah. I cut in, blah, 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 blah. Can I make your order? Okay. Okay. So the person was standing in line, and then she just had to go to the front of the line because otherwise she would miss her flight. And then she said something in English that was just bad English. It's a good story. It's kind of funny. She said, can I make your order?" Which is a really funny thing to say. So very good. And the person looked confused, and then the person understood what was going on, and she felt embarrassed, but it was okay. Okay, so that's the story. So a nice story. Now, yeah, the first. So what I think what we need to do is just look at the sentences, and the sentences really are what are going to make or break your writing. The sentence is the basic unit of writing. And in English, the sentence is a very specific thing. This a verb and a subject. So let's try this. The first thing that springs to mind, I'm going to say that. The first thing that springs to mind. Very nice expression, to spring to mind. Very good. It was last year when I prepared to back China. No, back, no. I hear this all the time. No, this is not a verb, okay? Or as a verb, it has a completely different meaning. It's not about movement. You can never say back China. It has to be go back or come back. Okay? And it's always going to be to China. At first, I didn't realize what would happen. So this one probably doesn't fit, right? She probably should have cut that one out. So I left just 1.5 hours to check in as normal. Oh, okay, I see. She means that she didn't realize how crowded it would be. And so that's one of the rules in writing. When you're trying to decide how to say something, you can tell yourself this little magic sentence, which is, well, what I mean to say is, and then that's what you write. So in this case, what she meant to say was, she didn't realize it would be crowded, right? So that's what she should say. I didn't realize it would be so crowded. Period. Right? Period. So I left just 1.5 hours to check in as normal. And now, nope, that's a full idea. That's the idea stops, right? That's a complete sentence. I left just 1.5 hours to check in as normal, right? There's the verb, and there's the subject, and it's a complete sentence. So finished. So not until when I arrived. Until is more a different thing. When I arrived at the airport, comma, that's okay, comma, to my surprise, comma, very nice. Good writing. That's nice. The airport was full of people, not filled, no, full of people. Now, normally I would just underline these. Like normally I would just use the underline thing, which is, let's see, its format, this one. This one, striking through. I should actually be using this, but I'm too lazy. So I'm just going to delete them. Should is not past tense. So basically, we're kind of going with the past tense there, it looks like. And that's a good idea. because it's easier to manage. It's more consistent. If you use the present tense, it's more exciting, but the past tense is kind of safer. So I would go with the past tense for all of this. And should in the past tense, you would need to say basically needed to. So I'm going to use the style paintbrush here. I'm going to take that and I'm just going to paint over that now, and it'll change to okay. So now I'm just going to check the verbs. The first thing that springs to mind was last year. And you hear when you're reading and you're wondering where to punctuate, you listen to your own voice and you feel your own breathing. And when I read this, the first thing that springs to mind was last year. And I naturally stop there, right? I just take a breath. I naturally stop. So that was a good place for a comma. When I prepared, now here I would like a continuous, past continuous, because she was getting ready. This whole process of packing your bag, and you're thinking about your ticket, and you're doing all these things. It's a whole process. So I would say was preparing, and preparing is a little more formal. The collocation or the phrasal verb, getting ready. When I was getting ready to go back to China, and it's telling me it needs a capital letter there, from Korea, I didn't realize it would be so crowded. Period, right? Okay, good. So now actually this is already a fairly long sentence, but it's okay because we have a verb and a subject, a verb and a subject, a verb and a subject. And those three together do give basically one idea. So that's okay. We don't want to go longer than that. So I just left 1.5 hours to check in as normal, period. When I arrived at the airport, though, you don't have to, but this would be a nice place for the word though. Optional. And it means but, right? And we could also have but here. And some kind of adverb like that would actually make it a bit, maybe stronger. It makes it a bit longer, but when I arrived at the airport, let's leave it. When I arrived at the airport, to my surprise, the airport was full of people. Now here, you have to do something with this. Actually, it's telling you that's not okay like that. You either have to make two sentences or add the word and or the word but, or join the two sentences, but you can't just join them with a comma like that. In English, you can't. I think I like and there because it and gives when I arrived at the airport, to my surprise, the airport was full of people. Oh no, I wouldn't go with and, but it's because it's already long. I'm going to go period there, just period. Maybe so. So I needed to queue up at the end of a long line. That's very good, right? Very good. It really tells the picture very well, right? You can really see the whole thing, which is the important part. When I arrived at the airport. And remember with the and the first time it's and afterwards it's the. And the thing like the airport, you've already thought about it in your head. I'm going to the airport. There's only one in that situation, so that's why it's the. After half an hour, same with the line, same thing. Still moved at like a snail. Okay. And I also would like to see here this would be better, this tense. The line was moving. And if we did that, you wouldn't need the still, because still is an adverb of time. But if we go with was moving, then we don't need that adverb of time because this tense gives that idea that it's not finished in the past. And then like a snail, yeah. It's at a snail's pace. Close. And I think it's better to get it wrong than to not have it because it's so colorful. Okay, at a snail's, and see, it's telling me it wants this. That's an expression. I checked the clock, nice, and found that my flight was about to take off. Yes, right, perfect. Well, this implies to me this implies that it's happening in 2 minutes. So what I would go with would be taking off in something in a very short time. So and here we had no choice but to cut in line. Very great. That's great. Very nice English, right? I had no choice. Very good expression. There's so many good expressions in here. It's awesome. I walked to the front of the line. Perfect. I walked to the front of the line. Actually, it'd be nice to have an adverb in there. I walked like with embarrassment, or timidly, or fearfully, or desperately to the front of the line and found a foreigner. If when you have a verb describing a noun, you would want to make a little phrase out of that. Who looked? A foreigner who looked. And this little phrase now is describing the noun. It's an adjective phrase, we call it. A foreigner who looked very friendly, nice. So I summoned up courage. Right? And in general, all the tenses in a paragraph will be the same. It's not just not always like that, but general rule. So generally, all of these are going to be past tense, and the exception is the past continuous, right? I summoned up courage to ask him if I could cut a line. Beautiful. There, that could is conditional, not past, but it would be the same either way. Cut in line. Now, see how long it is, right? It starts here. I walked up to the front line, found a foreigner, looked very friendly, so I summoned up courage to ask him if I could cut a line. Period. Right? Definitely, period there. Okay. We want to stop there. My voice stops, the idea stops, so put a period. Unfortunately, at that time, my English was so poor. So I just thought, order. Now, in this case, it would be good to use these quotes. Quotes, I should call it. The proper name is quotation marks. Order, and because that shows she's thinking about the word order, represent. See, and it wants a past tense. I'm gonna go with the present tense because she's thinking. I just thought order represents line. That's kind of an indirect speech in the past, in the present. Like the whole thing is in the past, but the indirect speech, it's kind of like indirect speech. So I think a present tense in that one would be good. Although I think it's possible to have a past there as well, but I think a present's better. Represents line. Okay, so she's thinking about the vocabulary. That's why I want these quotation marks, because it's these specific words. So I just thought order represents line. I think a period would be good there. Then, as soon as I opened my mouth, I said a very stupid sentence. Can I make your order? No, don't say you are. That's only for texting. Oh, come on. That's like really slang. Don't spell it like that. In like in when you're writing, don't say you are. Okay. Can I make your order? And It's possible here to go like that. And let's just see if it looks better. I think it works better with the quotation marks. So we're going to make a comma there, and we're going to make a capital C like that. That's how you introduce a quotation mark. So comma, space, quotation mark, capital. And then down here, the question mark, and then the quotation mark. Now, I remember my professor telling me period always goes inside the quotation mark. So it's been a good rule for me in my life. I think you can follow it. I guess now you're going to use your spell check anyway. Okay, can I make your order? Okay, very good. So the story goes on. The story, it's very interesting. It's a good story, right? And the foreigner looked, right? Looked so confused. Then pointed to the front position and asked me, yes, you can go. He looked so confused, but I think he pointed because there's both of you are doing stuff that you were the subject here and here. So I think it's just better to clarify that you want he pointed. Although grammatically you don't need it, but it's better. Now here, I think so is better because it's like a conclusion, or it's a result of this. So is better, a little stronger than and, because of this being a result. So the foreigner looked confused. I would go like this. It's a little stronger because you're telling the story, and it's detail. The word then is a little redundant. Redundant. That means unnecessary. Okay, so we try to not have redundancy. Looks, he pointed to the front position. He pointed to the front of the line. But this was so close, such a good guess that I really understood the idea. But anyway, the expression is front of the line, comma, and asked me if you want to stand there. He asked me, did I? And wanna is slang. That's for texting too. And you is slang only for texting. This is indirect speech. So we want to go, asks me whether I wanted to stand there. That's one way to do it. Or you could say, asked me, do you want to stand there? So this is direct speech now. So either way is possible. But I think this is, let's go with that. Let's go like that. I said yes and expressed my gratitude to this stranger. After I calmed down, you're always going to have a space after a period, right? And the I is always capital. I suddenly recalled what I had just said. Now. I suddenly recalled what I had just said. Usually remember is more colloquial. Recall is a little formal. I suddenly remembered what I had just said. Period. Good. I realized now here I would like had, because it's past in the past. I had misused the expression. Now here, I think it's better to stop the sentence, partly because short sentences are better, but also it's stronger to have sentence, another sentence is more punchy. If we join them with and then, it's smoother. But here, I think we don't want it to be smoother. We want the punching because it's these different ideas and these feelings coming through. It's stronger, shorter sentences here. And generally, you want some short sentences and also some long sentences, and to vary the length, but they all need to be grammatical. I realized I had misused the expression. I felt so embarrassed. Okay, period and space. Maybe the stranger thought I was a waitress. Now, this is such a funny thing to say. I think it really needs a exclamation. After all, space. It was so funny, but embarrassing. So it was so funny. I'll see here, this is an adjective and this is a verb. I mean, a noun. So you have an adjective and a noun. Can't quite do that. It was, let's go, such a funny but embarrassing experience. Now this funny is now describing experience, so that's good. And it wants a period. Nice. Okay, great. So as you can see, there was a lot of strong writing in here. I don't know what mark that would get. I'm not going to guess right now, but you can see that the detail and the logic and the story and the humor, very nice writing, and some funny, like exaggeration kind of things, and really nice details. The detail really tells the story, right? So that's very strong. The main question was the verb tenses, right? Actually, that was the main problem as far as problems go. Logically, very nice flow, perfect logic, perfect sequence. Verb tenses, and then if in some places the expressions were a little off, but they were really close. So very nice writing. I can't think. Well, actually, it's not appropriate to mark it because this is not IELTS writing. This is IELTS speaking in a writing format. So I can't really use the marking guide. But anyway, that's what I want to say. And I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope you send in your writing if you want me to take a look at your writing. Okay, thanks. And we'll talk to you later. I hope I recorded this properly. How do I turn it off?